Smile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com, and today we're going to go over some Invisalign clinical preferences that I recommend. Now, not all of these are, quote, global clinical preferences. That means I don't always stick them all in my actual clinical preferences because I can't use them all in every single case. And I'm going to kind of go over these line by line, and I might give you a few more as well. So I want to go over what cases you could use them for and which you can't. The problem is if you stick them in your clinical preferences, the actual clinical preferences section in that box, there's a couple things that happen. Number one, it slows down your treatment plans, in my experience, because they have to actually go through and read it each time. So you can expect your turnaround time to slow down. So I try to put as little as possible in there. And I often tend to just type them in if they're applicable when the case comes back. But I want to let you know why I have them and when and what situations I have them. So number one, make each case at least 2 times as long. I don't put that in my clinical preferences because they're not going to do it. Because first of all, you're not even going to know if it happens, right? So I wait for the case to be optimized on my own, which takes me a few times to get it perfect in terms of the movements that I want. Do I want IPR? Do I not want IPR? Do I want to expand? Do I want to distalize? Do I want to extract? I figure out the method that I'm going to use. Then once I optimize it, then I ask them, make this case. Let's say they made it perfect. I love the contacts. I love the bite. I love the alignment. I love everything about it. I love the movements. I love the staging. And they made it 23 aligners. Well, guess what? I'm going to say, make this case 46 aligners, 50, whatever, to 40. Don't change anything else. So that one I don't put in my clinical preferences. Number one, they're not going to do it because that would be expensive for them. And they're just going to ignore it if you put it in there. But if you tell them like that, once you optimize it, they'll do it. Okay. So I just wanted to clarify that. But I do that on every single case. Number 2, add anterior bite turbos to pretty much every case and remove the bite turbos 3 aligners before the end. This I do put on every case. So this is actually in our clinical preferences. But okay, I'll tell you when I don't do it. It goes on every single case, but when I get a case back, I double check the pano, the shape of the roots, the tapering of the roots, the crown to root ratio. And if the patient has perio, short roots, widened PDLs, poor crown to root ratio, I remove them. Okay, so I have to remember in my head, you can't say do it like this because they're not going to do that. So because I use this on 95% of my cases, and if you don't know why, you need to go into my Invisalign education playlist, which is on my website, straightsmilesolutions.com, and you go to classes, I think, and I think it's the first one under classes. It says like free educational videos or something like that. Or if you're already in YouTube, go to my homepage, Straight Smile Solutions, scroll down. Invisalign's like the second or third one down. I don't know which one it is, but you'll see it. It's in there. You can search by keyword, anterior bite turbos, Invisalign, and you'll understand why you use it, when you use it, okay? So because it's on 90 to 95% of my cases anyways, except for those exclusions I mentioned, to add a few things, it's normally going to be 2 to 2. So 2 to 2 on top is going to be 7 through 10. But if there is an implant or like a major filling or a root canal, I'm going to take it off that tooth specifically. So you have to manually do this. You can't tell them to do that. You have to go in and do that. You have to think about these things on every single case. Also, if I started off with a big overjet, for whatever reason, maybe we were doing sequential distalization, there's no point in putting it on 7 through 10, but a deep bite, right? Because they can't reach it anyway. So I might start with it on 6 and 11, upper 3s, and then halfway through, I'll move it to 7 through 10. You can do that. That's totally fine. You can do that, but you have to tell them to do that. They're not going to do that unless you tell them to do that, okay? Another exclusion, if they had an anterior open bite, hopefully you're not taking anterior open bite cases unless they've had OMT therapy. We've gone through that. But there's no point. It's not going to do anything wrong, but there's just no point because it's not going to work because they're not going to occlude anyways. Remember, sometimes anterior bite turbos are used for relative extrusion to help level a curve of speech. Sometimes they're used passively just to prevent intrusion of the molars and causing that random, annoying posterior open bite that just randomly sometimes shows up in clenchers and grinders. Okay, so that's why I stick them on every case. They're going to have a different function in different cases, and I have to tell them what to do with them. That's your job. And if you don't know about that, you can watch all my videos and it'll explain everything. Okay, so that one I do put on. That one I ask for later. Number 3, all cases should finish with 3 points of molar occlusion, 2 points of premolar occlusion, and light canine guidance, and never ever anterior convex on 2 to 2. 2 to 2 is 7 through 10, or 23 to 26. That's always on my stuff. That's on every single one. Now, do they always pay attention to it? No. I often have to ask it. I feel like I type this like 100 times a day. So that's what I want. Now, a couple exclusions again. If I had a baby tooth, I might not put occlusion on that tooth, like a retained baby tooth. If I had an implant, I might not put like major occlusion on that. I might just keep it light. So there's a, again, that's something you're going to manually have to ask them to remove later. But by default, 99% of my cases, I want this on. So that's going to go in my clinical preferences, this and this. Number 4, no power ridges. I hate power ridges. If you don't know why, search by keyword power ridges. I'm not going to go into that. Hate them, don't want them. Bye. Sloppy, unpredictable, and annoying to the patient. They hate them. And lazy. Number 5, please fully derotate. I spelled derotate wrong. I think there's a hyphen. All premolars. Listen, unless you're doing molars or galar, they hopefully are fully derotating all your premolars. But I swear, 90% of the cases lately, especially if you're picking minimum and not traditional, it's awful. You actually have to double check your premolars. They don't always straighten them. Sometimes they only straighten the front teeth. I guess it depends on the tech. So listen, I'm not here to have half bleep, cases. I want the cases done right, Of course, there's a few circumstances where maybe we're doing some type of limited treatment. The patient has signed the right paperwork. They understand the risk, benefits, and alternatives for something very special. But that's a one-off. It's a very rare situation that I'm going to do those. So please fully derotate all premolars. Number 6, please add mesial rib tip to upper tooth. I'm not keeping that in my preferences, but so often I get these cases that come back. And if you're using the CBCT functionality that's new that you can upload, if you do have a CBCT, you'll even see it. They don't upright their 7 and 10, their upper twos. They're always tipped distally, in my opinion. I look at them like, that's not uprighted, that's not uprighted. So often, very often, I have to ask for that. And if you are doing treatment plans with me, you'll see me ask that. And it always looks so much better when they do it. I don't know why their algorithm has them always slanted. It's ugly. And plus, the goal of ortho is to have parallel roots. Why? Because we don't want our roots tipping and colliding. It's not healthy. The forces aren't loaded properly. I wish they'd fix that. I just find that Invisalign's treatment plans don't straighten 7 and 10 properly, like globally, almost always. Number 7, I often have to ask for more torque on 2 to 2. Again, more issues with 2 to 2, 7 through 10. Sometimes it's buccal root torque. If the patient started like a class 2 division 2, sometimes I'm going to ask for palatal root torque. You need to know the difference between buccal and palatal root torque. If you don't know the difference, watch my video, search by keyword, put in the word torque, you can learn. You have to ask for specifically what type of root torque you want. No, this is not going to be in my clinical preferences, but so often, especially in a case like this, you're going to have to ask for torque on this. So just be ready to ask for it. And a lot of times you guys are looking at cases and you're like, I don't know what's wrong with it. It just doesn't look that good. Well, it's because they didn't do the torque. Why? Because torque takes a long time. And they would have to give you 40, 50, 60, 70 aligners to get the torque right, which is fine with us. We want to do things right. It's just not going to look right if you don't do it. But that costs them more money because they have to make more trays. So their default first round treatment plan is going to be lowballed. It's going to be fast. It's going to be unpredictable. It's not going to be perfect. The tubes are probably not going to be right. The premolars aren't going to be rotated. And the torque's not going to be good. If you don't ask for the torque, you're not getting. Don't ask, don't get. Okay? They're just not going to torque the teeth unless you ask for it. So is that in my treatment plan? No, because not all cases need extra torque. But if I need it, I'm going to ask for it when it comes back. And number 8, so often they do not properly upright molars, especially if they're tipped. So you have to specifically ask them to upright the molars. If you don't ask for it, they're not going to do it, okay? So if needed, I'm going to ask for them to upright it. I'm going to say, please look at the panel. Upright the teeth. I want all my molars parallel. Why? Because it takes a long time to upright molars. It just does. Same thing as with the torque. It's going to take 40, 50, 60, 70 trays. They are never going to give you a first round that long because they're going to try to lowball you, because they're going to try to save money, because they're a public company, because they're a business. Listen, they're just doing their job. I get it. That's how public businesses operate. They have to be as profitable as possible to please their investors. Again, these are all my opinions. But I've been doing Invisalign for over 20 years. Wait, no? Oh, no, it would be 19 years now. I've seen if I had to guess, hundreds of thousands of treatment plans, if not more. I mean, ridiculous amounts, hundreds a day at least, so I'm very familiar with what they do. And I can make any plan amazing, but you have to ask for things and you have to know what to ask for. And it's going to take practice and practice and practice and practice to get things right. So these are the main things that I ask for. Oh, another tip that you should always look for, that I always look for, is they don't always level your incisal edges. So click the lower button at the top, swing the lower jaw forward, and just look at your lower incisor edges. Sure, you can take a disc and smooth it off later if it's not that much, but why not just have the aligner do it right to begin with if possible? And you have to keep in mind, if something is like worn off at an angle, well, you can't necessarily zing that off, unless it's super minor. You're probably going to have to intrude it and add some composite afterwards. So you have to look at your gum lines, you have to think about all that. And if you're planning on doing some type of filling, you need to loop the patient in, because patients haven't always budgeted for that. And then you get to the end, they're like, that looks ugly. You didn't tell me I needed a filling. I recommend, especially if you're a general dentist, bundling the price all into one. I'm not saying that you're billing like that, but you have two separate treatment plans, the ortho one and then the restorative, and you let them know this is all one plan. This is not going to look good unless you very quickly do this. And the other thing you have to keep in mind, if you have a combo interdisciplinary treatment plan that involves restorative, be it veneers, crowns, composites, laminates, whatever, afterwards, you need to, well, sometimes insurance isn't going to cover it. So of course, I would highly recommend taking a deposit on that, because if your outcome depends on getting the restorative, you want them to be fully committed. But also what often happens is that they're going to dilly-dally around at the end of treatment. They're going to be like, well, when can I don't want to get it done now. Well, you really have an obligation. I'm not saying unless you put it in writing, but most people do. It's the right thing to do to give at least one set of retainers and to come up with a long-term retention plan. Now, remember, one set of clear retainers, assuming they're Viveras, well, Vivera doesn't come in one set, but if you made them in-house or ordered them from another lab, one set is not going to last them more than 6 to 12 months. Really, they just become non-functional. They're not going to keep your teeth straight for a lifetime. You need to come up with a plan. I'm not saying you have to keep the patient's teeth straight for a lifetime. And to know all more about this, you need to listen to my retention playlist. I have tons of videos on this. But, when to pick what type of retainer, what the options are, how to come up with a retainer subscription program, a value add, But your patients need to know before they even start the ortho that retainers are necessary. They're going to get X amount of sets. If you're going to throw in a full Vivera included, that's an awesome value, but you should let the patients know, because that's a big deal. That's costing you several hundred up front, and they should know that they're getting that. That's special. A lot of doctors do that. A lot don't. Some don't even include any retainers. They assess at the end. That pisses off patients. Unless you have it like clearly in writing and keep reminding them, they're going to be pissed and they're going to leave you a really bad review at the end. So I don't recommend doing that. If you're giving clear retainers, you need to let them know they're probably going to need 3, 4, 5, 10 retainers in a lifetime. How's that going to work? What are you going to charge them? Are you going to come up with a set fee? You certainly don't. I never recommend having to pay up front and getting lifetime retainers. That is the stupidest thing ever, because that will totally devalue your practice later when you go to sell it. Super dumb. But you can have a subscription plan where they can pay $49 a year, and then they can, as long as they're on auto bill, just keep billing, and then they can get unlimited retainers for, something like at cost, You can come up with something reasonable. If your hard cost, including shipping, is $60 per retainer, you could say $75, or $70, or just cover your costs, whatever. So that $49 is basically just gravy, and they may or may not choose to even ever use it. And that's just passive income coming in. That's a sweet idea, but at least they have peace of mind that they can always, and if you're going to do that, you have to find a way to store that STL in the cloud, okay? Invisalign's not going to store it indefinitely. You have to have cloud storage for that, and there's ways to do that. But you need to cloud storage it and pay for the cloud storage, and then let them know that all they have to do is give you a call. You'll send them a little Stripe invoice or whatever they can pay, and you'll ship the retainer to their house however many they want, But you have to work that out. But if things have shifted, okay, we're not even going to go into the whole relapse thing, because you got to listen to this happens probably every week that I get a doctor that's patient's been out for 3, 4, 5 months, had some relapse. Whose fault is it? His, yours. I have all kind of tips, paperwork, everything that you need to protect yourself so that the patient's not getting pissed off. The whole retention thing is like one of the number one complaints when you get bad reviews and complaints back to insurance, dental boards, is the whole retainer thing, because it's another phase of ortho treatment that's indefinite. And the patients really a lot of patients don't expect it. They don't understand that unless it is their second time or third time around. They really think that once the Invisalign's done, that they're done, and that's it. And they get one set of retainers and they're good for a lifetime. That rarely happens. Now, in the olden days when we had really, really well-made Hollies, that kind of was the deal. I mean, my Hollies have been around for 2 decades. I've never had to adjust them right at all, but I had really, really good ones made, right? A little more expensive than a Vivera, but that's what I wanted and that's what I chose. So, I mean, you really should have some flexibility in terms of retention, and then given opportunities to upgrade if they want something different. If they want a bonded, it's not clinically indicated. That's a big procedure. It takes you time, and okay, that's going to be $300 extra or something like that. What's the warranty on the bonded? What's going to happen if it breaks? That's a real emergency when bonded retainers break. What are you going to do? How's that's going to work? You need to come up with all those plans. And I do have content on all of that, so you should definitely think about it. Every doctor, there's no cookie cutter approach to this. You got to think about how you want to run your program, what do you want to offer, how it's going to work, and write up your paperwork, write up your warranties, write up your contracts, what's included, what's not included. The best and most successful doctors who do Invisalign are ones that have it all outlined and ready to go, but also have a nice little passive revenue stream in the retention later. That way no one's getting upset. They know that on their, outcome, they have 30 days if they have a concern, That's why it's always a smart idea, I'm going off subject, to use Invisalign Comprehensive, because you get that 5-year wiggle room. So if the patient comes back 2 or 3 months later, and that's still in the gray area, and they're like, I really was never satisfied on this. I mean, I always want to capture their signature before I discontinue treatment and deliver the retainers saying that they're satisfied. But I like to have a little wiggle room there, to retreat them at no additional cost. At least it's not costing me anything, it's just my time, right? If you're using lights, moderates, goes, it's going to cost you something, and you're not going to be happy about this, and the patient's not going to be happy, and you're going to be losing money on that case. That's why I think Go is the stupidest idea, not to mention the outcomes are ugly, in my opinion. I keep saying in my opinion, but why do they not offer Go to orthodontists? Because the outcomes aren't good, because you can't make good outcomes when you only move teeth the way that their limitations are. It just doesn't look good, right? So we don't have Go because it's not good. So it's lazy and sloppy, and it never turns out well. So anyways, all that was my opinions. These are my tips, main things you want to look at, main things that I ask on every single case. And if you do work with us on your cases, these are things that you will learn as we go over cases over and over and over. You can see our comments. You can see how we do it. We can do it together. We can help you do it. We can help you learn to do it. And as you do it, you'll start to see things repeat, and you'll learn what to ask for and how to have a really, really good, amazing, predictable Invisalign case that'll actually track, and you'll get the outcome that you want. Patient will be happy, patient will be satisfied. Post the pictures on Instagram. Patient's going to send you 5 referrals because what they asked for, they actually got, and they're like, wow, this doctor's amazing, they know what they're doing. So you can do it. All right, thanks so much.